Today is Monday, December 9th, 2013. This is episode 5 of the LT11.TV live talk show, the show with no name still. My name is Brian Runnells from ClimbingNarc.com, and we have another great show for you guys tonight. We got Rob D'Anastasio and Jason Kehl here with us. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
Later on, we're going to try and answer some questions. If anybody has any as the show goes on, get those in on YouTube, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. Just a few notes before we get started. Thanks to everyone for the great feedback on our last show with Angie Payne and Dave Graham. Pretty fun show. People seem to enjoy it. Another thing, people have been asking for a podcast of the show, and that's something that we're working on. We have our best people working on it day and night. Hopefully soon that'll be ready. So yesterday I took a little field trip down to Golden, new Earth Treks gym down there with Jason. Helped work on quite a bit, and I have a lot of questions asked Jason about that, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to kind of find out more about both you guys, just find out about your background, how you guys got into climbing. I think both of you guys have been climbing for well over 10 years, maybe 20 years. Nod your head. Yeah. So just, Rob, why don't you start out and just let us know how you got into climbing and kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah, well, I began climbing a little over 20 years ago. Was keeping it pretty casual for a couple years, and then, you know, when I turned 10, 11 years old, I started dropping out of all the other regular kids sports that you participate in, and just started climbing more often. Started competing in juniors when I was 12, and just kind of ran with it from there. Competed, throughout high school, and then eventually came out to Boulder to go to college, and just kind of ran with it.
How long ago was that you came out to Boulder?
That was 2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few years ago. So you're pretty much like a Boulder resident by now.
Yeah. When people ask me where I'm from, I still say Philadelphia. So.
Nice.
Not from Boulder.
No, nobody is.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
I'm also from the East Coast, from Maryland. And I got into climbing just because, I wasn't into any of the team sports, anything like that. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to do something different. At the time, I think climbing was a lot different than it is now. It was more like this extremist sport, like the old man on the mountain. It wasn't like all these gyms and craziness like it is now. So I think I was attracted to that, like danger and adventure part of climbing.
And what year was this that you started?
I think it was probably 92, 93.
So were there even indoor climbing then?
Yeah, there were. The Clipper City Rock Gym in Baltimore is where I was climbing, and it eventually burned down a couple years later. But there was climbing gyms. They were more like old warehouses, like
Sure.
You needed a down jacket in the winter in there to belay. And it was cool though, and there was a lot of competitions, more route climbing competitions, and that's kind of how I met Rob, just competitions up at the Philly Rock Gym. Mm-hmm. And but then I started traveling, and I was going out west every year, every summer, and then I eventually kept extending my trips longer and longer until the trips turned into like a lifestyle. And there goes 10 years or so of off and on just living on the road or just living wherever just to climb.
Yeah. What did your parents think about that kind of lifestyle that you ended up going with?
They're fully supportive of it. I mean, they always went camping with us when we were kids and stuff, and I mean, they're totally down with all that, and they're very supportive about all of it. And my mother comes out and visits me a lot. Like, she's been to a lot of the main climbing areas that I go to. It's pretty funny.
What does she think when she comes out? Like, does she think that it's kind of like, what are all you guys doing out here? Or,
no,
my dad always kind of wants to know why I don't just use a ladder to get to the top of the boulder problem.
She's been around it enough that she understands the community, I think, and she knows why we do it, and she has fun just hanging out and just being outside and checking it out.
Rob, what were your parents like when you were coming up? Were they pretty supportive?
Yeah, my dad was especially supportive. He he's the one that introduced me to the sport, and I think my mom was just happy that I was taking something seriously, something that she thought that you can, kind of kind of take somewhere and be passionate about. And she was glad that I was interested in something that was, decent. So, I told her I was coming out to Boulder mainly for school. Really, I was coming here for the climbing, so she was happy anyway. And
I feel like parents have to be onto that by now. Most kids that want to come out here for school, probably not here for the academics, primarily.
Yeah, well, she didn't let me know if she was onto it, so she rolled with it. It was fine.
Nice.
Yeah, so they were good. Yeah, they got my back.
So like I said in the intro, it's kind of cold out here in Colorado. It's gym season. Went down to Golden yesterday. The gym opened a couple weeks ago, I think. Soft open, Earth Treks down in Golden. It turns out, Jason, you kind of played a pretty big role in this gym. Talk a little bit about how you even got involved with this project to start with.
Well, I've been involved with Earth Treks for a long time, like I think since '98. That's where I started going after the original gym I went to burnt down.
Clipper City. That's a sweet name, by the way.
Yeah, totally. So those are like the whole crew. Earth Treks is awesome. I was their head setter for a while. I helped design their Timonium gym, and I also helped just with some input on their Rockville expansion, which is I think it's the biggest gym in the U.S. It's one of the top biggest gyms in the U.S. And so then this time, Chris Warner, the owner, Scott Heitman, they were like, came to me and they're like, we want you to design this new gym. It's in Golden. I've kind of been living in Boulder off and on. And it was just an amazing opportunity to get my ideas out there. I like shaping holds a lot, and I just want to create something to climb on, from all the way from like the handholds to the route setting to designing a gym. So just really unique opportunity.
Yeah, I guess that is an interesting progression. You've worked with shaping, like you said, and then it's kind of the full circle now that you've basically designed them. Design the gym, put the holds on that I made, and set some routes, and then climb it. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So did you design just the climbing walls, or did you design the rest of the gym, or is that?
Just the climbing walls. The rest of the gym was pretty much designed, and they sent me the file of the gym and the space I had to work in, and then I just took it from there.
So when you're sitting down to start working on something like this, how do you even begin to decide like how you're going to lay out the gym? Do they have like, we want this much bouldering space, this much rope climbing space, or is it more up to?
Well, kind of. I mean, we had. Like there's that bouldering hall, which is that pretty big room mainly for bouldering. So we knew that was the bouldering. And then the main room, which was for the rock climbing. The main issue that I had to work around with was all the beams and columns, basically structural for the gym, So I had to really work around that. I couldn't do anything I wanted to do necessarily, but
yeah, it's a challenging space. It seems like it's not. Yeah, it's not like you have this huge open area to work with.
No, not at all.
Constrained. When you think about, if I was going to build a climbing gym and however I wanted to.
Yeah, just have it start on the one end of the building and have it finished on the other end.
Yeah, you wouldn't have these real world constraints to.
Yeah, so that was definitely interesting. Initially, I got together with Chris Warner and we just looked at images. He had some really cool images he had found online, different architectural stuff, sculpture, stuff like that. Even some gyms, that we've seen in Europe or wherever, we were just compiling these images just of stuff we liked. And then from there, I then took it into the program, which is SketchUp is what I used. And I did not know how to use it at all when I first started. And some of my first sketches of the walls were like
raw
mushrooms and like all this weird stuff. And I remember the first couple meetings we had, I think he was like, I guess the peyote is really good down there in Waco, I'm not sure what you're doing. I want to see some walls,
Yeah.
So that was just like kind of the brainstorming, part of it, just trying to do something different, I wanted to like have stuff that like came down or something, stuff you normally don't see in a climbing gym.
Did you take any inspiration from like real rock climbing formations that you had climbed on, or?
For sure. And I think now that I look back on it, one of the features, the blade feature, which is that big black kind of arete, is very similar to a first ascent I did in Waco. It's called the Hand of Time, but it's this huge overhanging blade of an arete, and I think just having that feeling when you're outside. I like to climb on features, you know, like be it in a ret or like, you know, a big roof or something. So I was trying to do a lot of different features in the gym, so it felt like you were on the edge of something. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm on a flat wall and this is where I am. It's like you have this more three-dimensional feeling to it.
And it seems like that's something that you tried to carry throughout the design, making things more three-dimensional.
Yeah, and I think we're really focused just as a group on having individual lines, you know, like, so we have a certain terrain here, but then 10 feet or 20 feet down the wall, it's a lot different. So you're not just climbing the same stuff all the time.
Sure. And Rob, you've been in a lot of gyms over the years, and Jason, I'm sure you have too. There's sort of this trade-off when you have really featured walls. You end up getting this situation where all the problems or all the routes end up being the same, because you get kind of forced into doing the same moves over and over again. How did you try to balance making the walls more featured and interesting with that sort of that trade-off that can start to happen?
Yeah. Well, I think also leaving space, like that was a big important thing, was to have panels that were big enough so that we could add volumes. There weren't a lot of like small angles. We didn't want anything that was too small that you like couldn't put like a different volume to change up the angle, or adding bigger holds, stuff like that. And I think that's really the route setters. And it's interesting working with different route setters that go to the exact same wall and set something totally different and totally fresh than what the current route setter is used to, you know. Same thing over and over. It kind of gets stuck in a pattern. So I think the route setting is, with the different angles, you can do a lot with the route setting.
Yeah. And so how the process, when did you start working on this?
January last year. Yeah.
Is that not even a year ago then?
Yeah. So the whole thing moved really fast. Probably 6 months in the design, and then once things started rolling with the construction, it was just really fast.
Pretty quick.
Pretty surprising. Yeah.
And what was the feedback process like in working with the wall company?
It was interesting. Because we came up with our design, and then we shopped that around to a bunch of different wall builders. We ended up choosing Walltopia, and their kind of job is to make it buildable for them. So they came back with what they wanted to do, and it was completely opposite. Everything was simplified, everything was blocky, and basically we were like, no, like we want it to be like this, like we want it to be, totally different like this. Like they're like, well, this one area like sinks in really far and there's a slab there. You're like, you want that? And like, yeah, we want that. Like that's like a point we want to make there, So it was definitely hard at first, and then we also we had an issue too, because I guess usually the designers come over here, but the designer we were working with had a broken leg, and so he was stuck in Bulgaria. So we were doing it all online, which made it a little harder. But eventually we learned to work together, and it was a really cool process, and he definitely had some great input, and we were having meetings with some of the other route setters from Earth Treks also, and everyone kind of had their input. Everyone was involved.
So now the gym is built, how do you feel about the overall end product? Just things that you feel like you might have wanted to change, or you overall pretty satisfied with how it turned out?
Overall, I'm pretty satisfied. Actually, a lot of spots that I was worried about being too tight or a little narrow actually turned out to be bigger in real life, which was nice, because I know there's some spots in some of the other Earth Treks that I used to climb at the Columbia facility. There's some narrow spots in there and you really feel closed in, and I feel like this one's a little more open and you don't have that feeling.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday when I was down there. It seems really challenging when you see the space, how small it seems when you're there, and then trying to figure out how to lay out the walls and leave that space that you're talking about where people can climb and not feel like they're going to hit somebody if they fall. And it seems like that worked out pretty well, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, we tried to have a lot of stuff, like if one wall was pushing out, the other wall was, pushing in. So you could have an overhanging wall, but then there was a slab that was facing it, kind of like, how when something cleaves off, like that kind of deal.
Yeah, it's a cool gym. I think people should go take a look at it. I mean, it's kind of crazy in this area. There's so many gyms now. It's
another gym.
Like the ultimate first world problem. have I think 5 climbing gyms within 30 miles or something. Probably more than that actually. But yeah, Rob, you should go down there and check it out sometime.
I certainly will.
Maybe let the holds get broken in a little bit more.
Yeah. How was your experience climbing? You had a good time?
It was good. The only thing, like, the holds are all brand new, so it's super textured.
Yeah.
Really rips up your skin pretty good, which is, it's good at first because you stick to everything and you feel like everything's easy because you can just like slap at anything and hold on to it. But then after like 2 hours, you're start to feel like you're climbing horse fence or something.
The plastic burn. You get that burn going on.
And I guess the other thing that I noticed was how long the climbs can be on the bouldering, in the bouldering area. There's a huge roof that, I don't know, it must be 20, 30 feet of climbing that you could do if you just kind of went out the full roof. But overall, the walls are pretty fun to climb on.
Nice.
So it's cool. So kind of on the topic of this gym is you both started climbing at gyms that were built in the 90s. I don't know, in the Clipper City, rest in peace, when that was built.
Early 90s.
Probably so much different than the gyms that are built now, like Center 1, the new Earth Treks gym, Stone Summit, which is like 500 feet tall. I'm just wondering what you guys feel. Do you feel nostalgia for the old designs? Do you like those better? Do you like the new gyms better? Kind of what's your, Jason's probably a little biased about this new gym, but Rob, what do you think about kind of the way gyms have progressed over the years, where it's turned from more of like a functional space into more like design heavy and that sort of thing?
Yeah. I think like functionality, I think on a small woody or like, in like an old school gym, like the old PRG, I feel like you can get strong as an ox there. I mean, you've got everything you need. If you got a couple good buddies you can go in and train with, like, for power, you don't need a whole lot. Maybe just a ton of holds on like a small woody.
Some greasy jibs for feet.
Yeah. You might not build as much technique, but
technique is no substitute for power. Somebody
who needs
really
it?
strong said that once.
Nice.
But I mean, nowadays I think it's like, a little nicer to go into a gym that's like all open and well lit and like super clean. It creates like kind of an easier atmosphere to walk into and like, and to just like every day just keep going back. But I don't know, at the same time, if you're really psyched, like, when I was like, whatever, 12, 13 years old, I didn't give a damn. I was like, I'd have my harness on
go climbing
in the car, like, like when I got picked up.
Safety first.
Yeah.
And I kind of crave that like dungeon style feeling of going somewhere. It's like dark and there's like tons of holds on the wall and you're there to like train and get stronger. Like wasn't like, oh, like wash my hands in the heated bathroom. It's like
hand sanitizer,
just straight business. So.
Yeah, I mean, the Earth Treks gym in a way is kind of like the opposite of that. Even though you can have the same experience when you're there, it's just, I mean, it's well lit. Right now, it's very clean.
Yeah.
Everything's fresh, but it's just kind of not the same as some of those older gyms that were more, like you said, built in whatever facilities people could find back then that they could put a climbing wall in, garages, barns.
Yeah, like pea gravel for landings, and you
like
step
chopped up rubber.
The chopped up rubber. You step out, and your nose is like black boogies everywhere.
A lot of nostalgia for
Classic,
the pea gravel landings. Makes your back feel really nice.
Yeah, I mean, as long, I think, there's really no difference as far as how you can push yourself and how strong you can get for the gyms that are here today, and then the ones that we had, when we were just getting started. So, in that sense, it's like a level playing field.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, I'm overwhelmed at these new gyms, because there's so much to do. It's like there's like system walls, campus boards, crazy bouldering, crazy routes. Like,
we didn't mention they've got these 3 Waltopia systems boards that are. Do you know the dimensions on those, Jason?
I think they're like at least 12 or 13 by 14. But they're on that kickboard. So I think when they're vertical, they're 16 feet tall, and they go to 45. So
yeah, they're fully adjustable.
They're massive. Yeah,
it's crazy that there are 3 of them there. It seems like they're just showing off at a certain point.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you feel like that's going to be the trend going forward? Is these gyms that are built with so much of a design factor involved? I feel like the Earth Treks gym and then Center 1 seem like the ones that come to mind in the U.S. I'm sure. I feel like in Europe they're probably are more common. since Waltopia is based out there. Do you think that that's going to be kind of the style that goes forward?
I hope so. And I mean, I don't know. It's like this old mentality, the old gym mentality, you know, where they don't buy holds and, you know, everything's super greasy. It's like, I think the gym owners are starting to catch on that, hey, you know, like, if I'm constantly getting new holds, people are more psyched. If I'm doing community building things, like, people are more psyched. You know, it's not just like this one investment people climb. Like, I think people are like constantly refreshing things. And we had like this thing at the CWA, the last CWA here in Boulder, and we were talking with gym owners, you know, about how to get people psyched in a gym, and it all came back to, you know, the vibe, you know, and that's what like we're trying to like grow. And, you know, you go in there, you have this vibe of like, let's have fun and like let's train, and there's so much to do. It's like, it's nice. It's a luxury, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely nice, especially out here. You can pretty much just do a gym circuit. And
yeah.
Other than going broke,
crazy.
you can get pretty strong and have a lot of fun out there. All right, another topic that kind of goes along with this gym expansion is all these crazy kids that are out there climbing, just like lapping all of us adults, making us all look bad, some of us more than others. I know, Jason, you worked with Ashima a little bit over the years, you know, out in Waco, and Rob, I know you've worked with kids climbing as well, and you were a kid climber back in the day.
Yep.
We'll say 5 years ago, but
When he was one of the original kid climbers.
yeah, I mean,
back in the East Coast, it was like, oh, there's little Rob. Wow, he's strong, and he's like getting big,
yeah.
like fast.
So what was your experience like growing up as a competitor, Rob?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of like pretty complicated experience, but if I were to put it in a nutshell, yeah, it came down a lot to like the crew that I had in Philly to climb with. You know, I saw Jason quite a bit, being not too far in Baltimore, but you know, like Scott Meckler was one of the guys who he's been in the climbing scene for a bit, who I grew up with, and among others, we just had a really good core group of guys at the gym that I really learned climbing at. And so I guess it would just be kind of like, you know, going through that maturity, just you know, having those guys kind of like take me under their wing, go out to like, let's say the Gonks, the New River Gorge, like weekends, and you know, camping and maybe like sneaking some beers here and there and like whatever, like the whole experience.
Not you.
No, yeah, but you know, hypothetically, it could have happened.
Yeah, maybe.
But you know, I mean, so that was kind of cool, and you know, I think that's an experience that maybe not your typical teenager goes through, but you know, just hanging out with older people and kind of, I guess you might grow up a little quicker, like learn things a little quicker, and see some things that you might not see for maybe another couple of years otherwise. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it is. You know, one generation kind of picks up and you know, leads the next one as they come along, and so yeah, long story short, it's just that's kind of the way it's been. And then now, you know, there's younger guys at my gym in Philadelphia. There's a young kid, Nick Picarella, insanely strong.
Yeah, he's been making some waves out in the comp scene out there that I've seen.
Yeah, he's been making some waves, and I just want to say on the record, I called it a couple years ago.
What's it?
I called that, you know, he was going to be killing it. Like, give it a year or however long, you know, I wouldn't put a time frame on it, but you know, I just said, like, watch out for this kid.
Yeah.
And so
how old is he?
He's 17, I think.
Almost over the hill.
Something like that. He might even be almost 17. He, like, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, he's pretty young.
Nice.
But he's a good kid, and he kind of like, you know, to see him come up was kind of like a little bit of the full circle. Like, hey, I was there. You know.
What kind of things do you share with those guys when you're kind of mentoring younger climbers that maybe you either learned from mentors when you were younger, or just things that you picked up along the way?
Well, you know, I just try and you know, support them however they need support. Like, you know, and they support me too. Like, we go in the gym and train together, and you know, before he had his license, I would drive him to, you know, comp here or there or something. But one thing I keep in mind is you can't give away all your tricks. So to be honest, I try not to give them too much.
Try to hold back a little bit.
Yeah, because they got plenty of time.
Yeah.
You know, so let them learn that on their own. Like, you know, I got to try and hold them down as long as possible.
Everyone will have their time. Everyone will have their moment.
There.
Yeah.
No freebies.
No freebies. You know, give support, but don't give away all your tricks is kind of how I treated that.
Nice. And Jason, I don't know how much you've been involved with youth climbing, but I know that you worked with Ashima when she was out in Waco and made a video, at least one, maybe more.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
It totally changed my perspective on climbing. Like, because the first time I had heard about it, my friend Obi contacted me, and he was like, yo, you got to come down to Waco. This little girl's going to come down and crush it. And I'm like,
that's
dude.
Probably an exact quote, actually.
Yeah. And I'm like,
good impression.
I'm like, okay, that's cool. When you coming down? He's like, March. I'm like, I am not sticking around till March to watch some 10-year-old kid climb all day. You know, like guide them basically. Yeah. So I didn't go. She sent Power of Silence V10 that year. We all saw the bad quality YouTube video of this fetus climbing this thing and people screaming in the background. And I was like, wow, like, okay, next year I will check this out.
Some professionals on the scene.
Yeah, I checked it out, and I was just amazed at what she could hold on to. Like, how I looked at the rock was completely different. Like, there are holds there that you don't realize are holds unless you're climbing with someone like that. And it's just really amazing too that, like, I don't know, I always thought, like, you know, hard climbing would never get too young because the moves are always so big and so hard, and, you know, all this, and it's like these huge spans and like muscles, and it's just crazy to see how it has turned in a different direction.
Yeah, I got to watch her climb, I guess, at ABS Nationals this year still, and then up in the park for 5 minutes when she climbed my project. And I guess the like you said, when people just hear about kids climbing, at first they're just like, well, they're kids, it's easy.
Yeah.
Like, it's really like, why do I care about what they're doing? But when you see them climb, it's not just like some, you know, like, it's just not like a giveaway for them. They're actually good climbers. Like her in particular, I was really impressed with how like fluid she was and how well she worked her feet. Excuse me. Just kind of like the seasoned nature for climbing. Not something that a 12-year-old should be able to do.
Yeah. And I tried to share that feeling with people, and I always get the same thing. Dismissal. They're like, yeah, whatever. She's like really light. She can crimp on anything. But like, you don't understand. She knows how to climb. Like, really climb, not just, hey, go here, go here, go here. Like, she knows what to do.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and hopefully people can kind of get that through the video you made and then other ones that have come out since then. I can't think of what my next question was going to be.
I'll give me this opportunity to drop. There's a new video that I put together, me and my girlfriend Martina, and it should be out any day now. It's of Ashima sending full service last season in Waco, which is super stout V10.
Yeah.
And there's a big move on it, and she statics that move. So it should be out any day now. So look out for that. It's called Ashima's Perfect Day. It's like this whole concept of what her perfect day would be.
Okay, that reminds me of a couple things that I want to talk about.
Nice.
One is when kids climb these problems, everyone says, well, it's not the same problem for them. You know, these grades don't apply to them. What do you guys think about that? I know both you guys don't really talk about grades a whole lot, but do you think that when a kid climbs a V10 or Ashima does Crown of Aragorn, it's a V13, does that not count because they're under 5'8" and under 100 pounds, or these arbitrary distinctions that people like to make?
I don't personally, because I don't believe in grades at all. But I have some friends, one friend in particular, J-Bone, who says that if she can't come back and do it when she's full grown, it doesn't count. You know, because she's on her way to her final stage, which I guess there is no final stage, but
I mean, that's definitely interesting to think about, because she's not the first young kid that's climbed hard grades and then you never hear about them once they get older, or you hear about them somewhat, but I think Tori Allen's probably one of the more famous. She's kind of like Ashima before it was cool to be Ashima. But I don't know. What do you think, Rob?
I think there's so many different physiques to climbers out there.
Mm.
You know, you got Fred Nicole, you got Dave Graham, Chris Sharma, and Adam Andra, and they're all unique. And you know, to me, it's just kind of like a more extreme physique. I find it hard to say that you can really take anything away from someone because of their size or
I mean, we're all
that.
dealing with some kind of handicap or some kind of like, you know, you have these genetic freaks out there that are
nobody's
just like
perfect size or shape for climbing except
So-
Adam Under, apparently.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone else
Someone
has
else will come later,
struggle.
you
Yeah,
For
know,
sure.
and do what he does. I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like the one caveat is that pretty much every single rock climb is graded by a man that's full grown. So it's sort of like this, you know, the scale is built around a certain, I don't know, like range of guidelines where once people come that are outside of that, it sort of throws things for a loop. But even the people that are within that range have a hard time agreeing on the grade of anything. So it's kind of all moot in a certain sense.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say though, you see someone like Ashima do whatever, the automator, or I don't know, all the other hard stuff that she does.
Yeah, it's not just one.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's just impressive. So if you just kind of strip away all the like, you know, nuance, like what grade is it? Is it reachy? How like a small crimpy holes, big slopers? Like if you just kind of like look at the general picture, I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah,
and it's inspiring, and I think if you take it on that level, you know, you might get the most out of it instead of like nitpicking.
Yeah. And what do you take from this youth climbing trend where there's a lot of focus and attention on kids? There's maybe pressure that goes with that. Do you feel like in your youth competitor, Rob, that you must have gotten some attention when you were, you know, winning all those? I don't know. Pretend like you won every comp you entered. I don't know your history exactly, but for the sake of this, we'll just say you won every comp you entered as a kid.
Yeah, well, I'll go with that.
Do you feel like there's like is this pressure going to be too much for them? Are we not going to hear anything from these kids once they hit, you know, once they can drive, that sort of thing? Like, is it a negative thing that they're getting this attention?
No, I think, you know, each individual is going to take pressure and deal with it in their own way. So it's just part of the nature of the game. You know, I mean, if you're amazing like Ashima and you're 10 or 11 years old, you're
just going to get
You're
noticed.
going to get that attention, and, you know, you can turn it into like nervous energy, or you can focus the pressure into positive things. And I think that's just up to the individual. I think you're not going to be able to change that either way. You know, people are going to react how they're going to react, like the public. And yeah, it's not a bad thing. I mean, I think I encourage this sport, I think, to become more popular and to get more attention. So, you know, I think it's fine. I think if they're going to do amazing things, and, you know, there's just some side effects.
Mm-hmm.
No
It's also new too, like as far as the longevity of kids in the sport. You know, it's like you mentioned Tori Allen, and then like the next generation comes along, maybe they're like, oh well, like I am motivated to stick into this longer or whatever, you know. It's just so young as far as the youth coming up and everything.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely a different dynamic, and we've talked about this on previous shows where there's so many more kids climbing now, so many more kids competing. It seems like more of them are only climbing inside, and it's sort of, it kind of remains to be seen what's going to come out of this generation of climbers. You know, are we going to get a bunch of outdoor climbers, or they're just going to stop climbing as soon as they get to college? And it's kind of not, there's not these comps that are driving them to kind of stay focused in climbing, and you know, their parents taking them around and paying for entries and that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully as the sport gets more popular, kids will get more support from sponsors, and you know, they can get money that way to pursue their dreams. So I think that's another reason why popularity might help, actually. Yeah.
I've taken it personally, and I'm trying to put up problems that kids can't repeat because their parents won't let them climb them because they're too scary.
Nice. That's
because I think that's the only way, because, you know, it's like they're doing everything, you know. So
that's a nice segue, Jason. Thanks for that. Let's talk a little bit about that. You're kind of known for highball bouldering over the years. What got you into doing that sort of climbing, and where did that start for you?
I think it started just how I learned to climb. You know, it was like not much sport climbing back when I started. It was more top roping, some trad climbing, and then you'd top rope something, and once you top roped it, you'd solo it, and that was kind of like the progression. You know, it's like, okay, I can do this a couple times on top rope. I'll try to solo it now. Like that's, I don't know.
And how tall were these?
Oh, like roots, like I don't know, 70 feet or
full on
something.
rock climbs.
Yeah. And I mean, they weren't like crazy hard or anything, or I mean, maybe they were at the time, but it was just like, I don't know, back then, I guess early 90s, it was like, okay, like do something, perfect it, and then, you know, try and like solo it, you know, like.
Well, and bouldering didn't really exist back then either.
Yeah, yeah. And the bouldering, when I started bouldering, I didn't have a pad.
Yeah.
You know, I remember climbing at the Gunks, like Jabu roof or whatever that is, and it's like talus under you. And I did it without a pad back then because I didn't have a pad, you know, like I had a piece of like foam from a couch or something, and that was it. But I think just bigger, beautiful, you know, that's my whole mentality. Like I want to climb something because it looks, I see it and instantly I'm either really scared by looking at it, or I'm like just amazed at the massive beauty of it. You know, I'm just like, okay, I want to climb this. I don't care if it's tall. It looks crazy. And if I can somehow climb it, like it's like kind of stunt man mentality. That's how I think, you know, I want to like pull something out, but be able to like, if I need to, you know, like roll out or whatever, you know, like survive, not like somehow. Yeah, somehow pull out of it. So that's kind of the game for me.
And how has that changed over the years? I know you had knee surgery a few years ago. Has that kind of curtailed that for you?
Not really. It did for a while though, because I had knee surgery and then I had re-injured it, and then I was climbing for a while without an ACL. And I soloed the fly up in Rumney without an ACL.
That doesn't count then. I read that somewhere. It's too easy that way.
It was in my pocket. Okay.
Kind of like these kids.
Extra weight, yeah.
Full ground.
Totally. Yeah. But I just didn't want to get surgery and ended up getting surgery again. And, you know, it was a long process. I think you heal physically a lot faster than mentally. You know, you're always thinking about that. And I think I am a bit more careful about things, a bit more calculated, I guess, which is good.
Have you ever gotten into that, Rob? Done any high balls over the years?
Nah, you know, I'm not really like into the whole, you know, high ball, you know, scare the pants off myself type thing. I prefer to push myself physically and you know, to see how difficult of things I can do. I'd say that's more of a motivator.
Sure.
For me.
I guess personally I'm more in Rob's camp, although I don't really push myself that hard physically either. But I've done a couple high balls over the years, and I feel like they're kind of these, they're more memorable experiences than, you know, regular climb. There's a lot more that goes into it, and just like the experience when you're climbing it tends to stick with me more. And I would assume that's the same for you, Jason. Is there any one that over the years that has stood out to you that more than other ones that kind of like, this is like the one that really stands out to you?
Yeah, for sure. Evolution in Bishop, just because.
And that's probably your most famous one.
Yeah. And I think like at the time, you know, bouldering was just starting to get popular, and there was some high ball boulders, but it never was mixed with difficulty. You know, it was like, hey, let's do this fun high ball. But the hard stuff was always like on the ground. So at that point, I was in Bishop.
And when was this?
2000, 2001. Friend from back east, Matt Bosley. He did the. I watched him do the Sharma face or whatever.
Evolution to the lip.
Yeah, whatever it was called. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't want to try this. Like, I want to go to the top. So like I got a rope and checked out the top. I'm like, well, this is an amazing line. I'd seen the poster of Sharma, and like, wow, this is a beautiful face, but like, let's just finish it, you know, like let's go to the top. And so that was like, that's kind of like, that's how I kind of work, you know. It was the same with the fly. It was like, I saw this hard thing that was totally a boulder problem in my mind, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to stop until I do this in this style.
And for people that don't know this, I think it's probably one of the most famous boulders in the world, but the Grandpa Peabody boulder in Bishop, I don't know how tall the whole full boulder is, 60
yeah,
feet maybe.
60 at the top, I think. Yeah.
And so this problem that you did kind of goes out the main face that you walk up to from the parking, and it's got, is it like V11 roughly?
Yeah, there's
the
like
kids
2
call it?
exits now. The left
Yeah.
one, yeah, I did the left one. A lot of people are doing a right one.
But so
now.
it's got pretty serious climbing,
Yeah.
20, 30 feet off the ground.
Yeah, you're like in it, and there's a video online of the first ascent, and like I remember like going for it at that point where I'm turning the slab and almost not sticking it, you know, and that feeling of like, oh wow, like you're there, you're in this danger, but you still have to focus, and I don't know what would have happened. You know, if
Probably
not,
good.
Who knows? You know, I'm lucky a lot. I fall off the edge of things all the time, and somehow I make it. So, you know, it's, you know, you can roll your ankle on a ladder and that type of thing, or you can jump off the roof and be fine. So,
yeah, that I think people can look that one up on YouTube. It's out there. I saw it yesterday. I think it was up there. But yeah, that's one of the more famous shorts from, I can't believe it's been that long, but
yeah, 2001.
Yeah. It's kind of, did you ever think that that climb would get done as much as it's been done? I feel like it's probably one of the most popular high balls.
No,
I mean, a 15-year-old did it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I never realized if it would gain in popularity or anything like that, because at the time it was just like, oh, whoa, like that dude did that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that just happened.
Okay.
How many pads did you have when you did the first time?
A lot. Okay. It was kind of like the thing when, you know, it was the end of the day. A lot of the climbers were kind of done, and they were like, hey, like, sure, I'll throw you my pad down and we'll watch, and maybe we see you bust your ass or something. So,
yeah. But yeah, I think a couple weeks ago, Mirko Caballero.
Yeah, totally.
I think only 15.
He's a cool kid. I got to climb with him a couple times down in Waco and out in Magic Wood.
A lot about him for the next many years to come.
Yeah, he's an awesome kid.
Yeah, he seems super nice. I met him a couple years ago. Good kid. All right, so let's talk a little bit about travel. Jason, you were just in Macedonia, and Rob, I know you've traveled to Rocklands, and Jason, you've traveled all over the place as well. First, Jason, just talk a little bit about this trip to Macedonia that you took and where that came from.
I
had to look it up before we started.
Macedonia, right?
I had no idea where it was.
Well, I saw a video a couple years ago. It was like Macedonia bouldering, really good video. The problems looked awesome. Like the rock looked really cool. Like the setting looked amazing. And I was like, wow, I'd like to go there sometime, you know. And I found myself in Europe this year for like 4 months. My girlfriend, she's from Slovenia. So we're in Slovenia. It's a 12-hour drive to Macedonia. Actually, a lot of Slovenians go down there, and they have like a annual like climbers, you know, competition type thing. And so we were like, yeah, we're gonna check it out, and it was cool. I liked it. Like I always like, you know, being somewhere new and, you know, totally different setting, and also with a new area. You're out in the middle of nowhere, like you're surrounded by all these sheep, and you're like, what other reason would I be here? Like if it wasn't for climbing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's bizarre. So I mean, that's what I mean. Adventure bouldering is another thing that attracts me to.
Yeah, you bouldered in India.
Yeah, that was the farthest for sure.
Off the beaten path areas that not a lot of people are going to.
Yeah.
People want to check out a video of that Macedonia bouldering. They can go on ClimbingNarc.com and find that linked up there on the homepage right now. Looks pretty cool. And does it seem like the kind of place people would really want to travel to, or is it kind of still too raw to know for sure?
It's a young area. I mean, we saw like a group of climbers like once when we were there, and we were there for 2 weeks. So I think it has a lot of potential. One of the other areas that wasn't kind of the main area, it was above this little village, this Dabnica village, and the rock was amazing. So I think there's a lot of potential up there. Some of the other stuff was here and there, sharp, a little crumbly, but overall it was good.
What about you, Rob? You've been you went to South Africa last summer, if I'm not mistaken?
2011.
2011. Well, 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how was that? I mean, seems like Disneyland of bouldering at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely worth all the hype it gets and all the popularity, and definitely a global destination in my opinion. It's amazing. I mean, there's tons of rock everywhere. There's an abundance of problems. I mean, you can go back year after year and still have so much to do, and it's a good climbing style too. I think it's kind of like, I don't know, I would say it's maybe like has like kind of a Waco-esque style climbing, maybe like a mix between like Waco and Joe's. You get some like small holds and some really, really hard individual moves, and then you get some other problems that are just like better holds, bigger moves, but it all maintains that kind of like powerful type of style, and it's amazing. Yeah, you would never get tired of that place.
You just get tired.
You just get tired. Yeah.
Jason, I feel like you haven't been to a lot of these more mainstream.
No, I kind of stay away from the mainstream areas.
Go out.
I was kind of hoping it would cool off, but it never did.
No. It's only getting more popular.
So I need to go. I mean, I love sandstone. It's like my favorite type of rock. It looks amazing.
It's good.
Yeah, definitely on my lifetime list to go there for sure. Let's go to a couple news stories I think have some interesting side topics we could talk about for a second. One is Adam Ondra last week did a new 515C in Czech Republic. It's called, actually I don't have it written down here, so it's not, I don't even think it's English, but I could be wrong about that and look stupid. But the interesting thing about it is, one, it's in the Czech Republic. The other two 515s are kind of in these well-known or kind of well-hyped areas in Oleana, or this Flatanger cave in Norway. The interesting thing, he in an interview he called it a piece of shit and said it's not actually that cool, but it's local, and he just thought it was fun and like good project for him to climb on. So the one thing I was kind of curious to ask you guys about was, have you had these problems that maybe aren't that aesthetic or maybe not that cool, but you've really kind of thrown yourself into working on them anyway?
I have. Maybe Jason's probably got stronger ethics about that.
Yeah, whenever I do, I'm really disappointed with myself. So
yeah,
I try to steer clear of that and really focus on the prime. But no, I mean, you can have the greatest time on some little low ball roof, anywhere, but just in general, for me, I try to keep my eyes on the prize.
High aesthetics.
Yeah, but sure, I mean, definitely you can. You just have to, let yourself into it. You could be at some horrible area with your friends, and as long as you're having a great time, that's the best thing right there.
Yeah.
Which problems were you thinking of, Rob? Any in particular that you've worked on over the years that maybe not that cool, but it was a good experience for some other reason?
Well, not long ago, in March, I think I was in Joe's Valley, and I was having a pretty good day, and I did a couple things that weren't so crappy, but I was still feeling good, and I finished the day off on Scrawny and Brawny, which is the most horrible little V10 you could possibly imagine. But
you're pretty much on the ground for half the problem.
Yeah, and so it was one of those you send it almost because you don't like it. It's look, I'm I'm gonna get the better of you just because I hate you, and it's every time you fall on a problem like that, you're I'm never gonna try this again. But in a weird way, it can be kind of motivating. So yeah, Scrawny and Brawny is one example of something that you're glad when it's done, because you really can never get back on it. So sometimes
you're I'm gonna do this so I can never do it again.
I think the trick is, if you have a crappy problem, don't ever try it once. And then you won't get a weird attachment where you just want to do it.
What about before you guys kind of moved out of your local circles, where you started climbing, where in Maryland there's not really known for its great climbing, and Philadelphia and Pennsylvania is not known for its great climbing, and for me in Wisconsin, there's not a ton of hugely aesthetic lines to work on. Did you have any problems back then that you just worked on, and looking back you're well, that really wasn't worth it or not that cool, but at the time it was kind of a valuable experience?
You ever been to the Sex Wall? Pennsylvania area.
Nah.
It's like drilled pockets. Sport climbing.
Sounds awesome.
I could have passed on that one, but I went there and had a great time, back in the day. Yeah, it's interesting, but there's a lot of stuff like that. Like the rock isn't as good, but put the time in, and at the time I found something that I was psyched on, and I mean it fueled me, to keep going. So I think it's all good. It's just a matter of if you're willing to accept what you have and just be out there and do it. Yeah,
as long as you don't spend all your time climbing junky routes and problems,
yeah, then
that's a problem with you, I think. Another thing that's been in the news a lot lately is this problem Meadowlark Lemon down in Red Rocks. It's a V15 that Paul Robinson put up a couple years ago. By all accounts, one of the coolest hard boulder problems in the U.S. for sure. And it's been repeated 3 times in the last week or so by Danny Woods, Jimmy Webb, and this guy Toshi Takeuchi, who seems like a pretty great climber. He's kind of under the radar.
Yeah.
So sort of this thing, I know you guys don't really play in this arena as much as you can help it, but Paul and I think Dave Graham and Carlo Traversi both repeated they all thought it was a V15, and then you get this thing where the other people, Jimmy never thinks anything's a V15. Do you guys ever think that much about these sorts of things when you're climbing, or is that something that really crosses your radar at all?
Well, that's what I'm waiting for, is the consensus. Like as a first ascensionist, I never want to rate anything because I want the consensus of the group to be like, okay, this isn't that bad, or this is harder than you thought. And it goes both ways, all the time.
What about you, Rob? You've climbed a couple V14s, right?
One.
Well, round up.
Yeah, sure.
What do you feel like these guys just don't know how strong they are? They just want to put people down.
Yeah, I think there's so many like mental reasons why your perspective on what a grade should be can change. I mean, yeah, for a lot of people, like, Jimmy Webb is just kind of like a, gritty type of guy, and he likes to make sure that he's not giving himself too much credit, and so in that way, it's just, I think, him honestly trying to like keep things in check and to not like to keep himself from getting too excited and making the mistake of putting out a soft grade. Sometimes it could be conditions, maybe are bad or good. I mean, sometimes you like, oh, not me, but like, some people get like personal like vendettas against other climbers, and like they'll go out and they'll repeat someone's V12 and they'll be like, I think
soft.
V10. Yeah. And
there's a weird
like,
dynamic that people maybe don't know about.
Yeah.
Like these interpersonal relationships that people have.
Yeah, believe it or not, like people care enough to like do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it happens, and yeah, I think there's just a lot of different mental things that can go on that can affect the way you think a grade should be, or like, the difficulty of a climb.
And Jason, I know you just said you don't grade your first ascents, and when I watch the videos that you make of them, first of all, the videos are really good.
Thanks.
I don't know if I'll have time to talk about them, but they're definitely unique and very interesting. And the one thing that I think about when I watch them is there's no grade attached, which is good, but then you don't really know like what you're watching. And you said you kind of wait for people to repeat them, but then it seems like a lot of your problems don't get repeated.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because they tend to be, high balls, or what do you think the reason is that they don't get repeated that much?
I don't know.
Or is it that they're just in Waco where there's kind of
I don't know.
more rules, more restrictions on people climbing there?
For instance, I put up a problem a couple years ago, the 7th Circle, and it was a project for a really long time, and a bunch of people were psyched on it, and it took me a couple years to do, and then as soon as I did it, crickets.
So
like
maybe
no one goes
glory
down there
because they can't downgrade something that hasn't been graded.
Yeah, I don't know. And yeah, I purposely didn't put a grade on it, but it was like one of the hardest things I've done for sure. And I don't know. It was a commitment thing too. Like a lot of the things, like they're either scary, or for instance, this one, I needed to go there as early as possible because the sun came at 11. So I was up at 6 a.m.
That's a tough hour for
like
most climbers.
warming up, running around outside to get warm, and like, you know, doing pull-ups at like 7 to make sure that when I got there I was ready to try it. And yeah, like you want to sleep in, like you're not gonna do it, you know.
Rob, when's the last time you climbed at 6 a.m.?
Oh man, I can't even remember. So I guess it's been a while, if ever.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'd like people to do some stuff for sure.
That's what I just always think about when I watch those videos, because the climbs look really cool, like super fun to climb on. I'm sure they're way above what I could do. But there are other climbs that have been put up in Waco in the last 5 years that have kind of gotten a lot of attention. Some of the like new 13s and 14s that other people have done. And I don't know why those get so much attention and other ones don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's easy access or
easier, I guess.
Yeah, you don't have to get up early, or you don't have to risk your life or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, that's not why I climb. So
it doesn't really matter.
As long as I can have my experience, and hopefully someday someone else will have their experience, and that's awesome. And for me, the less that is, great. You know, it's not mainstream. It's not like, oh, everyone's just going here and doing this, and then they put it on their scorecard and they leave Waco.
There's that one problem that Kevin Jorgensen put up probably 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's called the Duel. Have you looked at that at all?
No, but some friends went and looked at it, and they were not psyched on the rock quality and didn't want to risk themselves on it.
Sure.
I haven't seen it, but it looked cool.
That's one other kind of well-known eyeball out there that I don't feel like I've heard. I don't think anybody's repeated it.
Yeah. No, I haven't checked it out personally, but yeah.
What about the overall experience in Waco? You lived there for a long time this last season. I mean, I think, Rob, you've been down there, right? And I've been there for, just week trips here and there, and it's definitely a different atmosphere out there. You're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, even though El Paso's not that far away, so it's not like you're totally, it's not quite like Joe's Valley where you're like really out in the sticks. But what was it like living there for so long?
It was good. I feel like I've heard stories of people becoming alcoholics out there because they're all this desolation and everything. But I liked it, and I don't know. I'm not much of a city person, and I'm more of a loner than anything. So if I can just go out into the park and go for a hike on like a recon tour by myself, like that's perfect for me. And I think Waco has everything to keep me content that I don't need in Boulder or a city or wherever.
Yeah, I know going on short trips, it kind of has this magic quality about it where you just feel like, even I guess maybe that's kind of what the people that were out there 100 years ago felt too, this kind of oasis out in the desert that just doesn't seem like it's real
life. Yeah, you're in the desert and you can smell the forest.
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty cool. Bo likes that one. It's a unique place for sure. It's not, I don't know, it's not what I thought when I went there the first time.
Yeah. When did you go the first time?
I think it was 2009. So yeah, it was definitely a cool experience going there.
Yeah, I went in 96 and it was still open, 95, 96. And it's weird because I don't even remember what that freedom felt like, like we were just out
probably
there.
A good thing.
We had a guidebook and we were just walking around the middle of West Mountain by ourselves.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, the rules and all that is definitely hard to deal with, especially if you come for a short time. You're kind of like bombarded with all these rules and you don't know how to like weave your way through them. I think that's the trick, is like learning the rules and how to like work with the rules, because it's a great place still. And it's these people that show up for the weekend and they're pissed that they can't get into North Mountain on a Saturday and it's New Year's Day or something. You
gotta plan ahead.
Yeah.
It's just like a magical experience going there, like walking around the mountains. It's just sort of hard to believe that this stuff is all real, and even you kind of think about what it must have been like when you could just walk around anywhere.
Yeah.
'Cause it's definitely restricted now.
Well, yeah, I guess they used to drive their trucks all the way up in there, and have parties and stuff like
Probably have some
in
pretty
like
fun parties back
70s
there.
and yeah, I can't imagine what it was like back then. But if you go all the way on top of West Mountain, some like random isolated spot, and you'll still find like beer cans and stuff like that from those days of people partying. So it's amazing how far people like went up into the mountain.
Yeah. I think we're going to wrap it up. You guys have any projects you want to plug? Any sponsors you want to thank?
Sure. Check out my website, cryptochild.com. Soil Holds, La Sportiva, Revolution, Double Dot Hats, Martinez Hat Company, Blue Water. Doing a competition in Singapore, January 9th. It's called Gravical. I'm setting for that. You can check out that on my Facebook, Jason Kehl or Crypto Child.
Nice. What about you, Rob? What's going on with you?
Yeah, I should say what's up to Mad Rock, Revolution, Mountain Hardware. Appreciate all they do for me, and yeah, not much else to say really.
Well, great. Thanks to Jason and Rob for being here tonight. It's really great talking to you guys. Thanks to Kyle Berkumpis and Bo Kaler and Jordan Shipman for helping put this show on tonight. This is Brian Runnells, and see you guys next time.